Es un placer para mí invitar a la doctora Alicia Vargas a presentar esta segunda parte de nuestro seminario sobre cine mexicano transnacional. Gracias, Alicia.
Gracias. Pues bienvenidos a esta segunda mesa. Quiero agradecer a la doctora Maricruz, al doctor James por invitarnos a Mauricio Díaz y a mí a organizar esta segunda sesión del seminario Mexican Transnational Cinema, Visual Culture and Literature. En esta primera mesa, en esta primera sesión, tenemos a Eunha Choi de California State University. Igual que en la sesión previa, le voy a pedir que se presente, por favor, y adelante. Gracias.
Bueno, hola. Antes que nada, gracias por organizar un panel tan interesante, o dos paneles tan interesantes. Me gradué de la Universidad de Nueva York hace un par de años y ahora trabajo como instructora de tiempo parcial en la Universidad de California en Long Beach. Este es un proyecto bastante reciente, el cine de Reygadas para mí, y es parte de lo que yo espero sea un artículo más largo, ¿no? Así que quizás se lea como algo bastante fracturado y en ese sentido quizás esté imitando alguno de las problemáticas que trato de analizar. Principalmente en esta ponencia leo a Batalla en el Cielo y voy a analizar una secuencia, la secuencia del subte al comienzo de la película. ¿Han visto la película? Sí. Es en inglés mi ponencia. Voy a parar en ciertos momentos y tratar va a ser bastante híbrido, voy a cambiar de español a inglés. Y bueno, si hay preguntas después las pueden compartir conmigo. Gracias. Numerous critics have called our attention to the difficulty of either explaining or categorizing Reygadas as cinema. Sheldon Penn's 2013 article, for instance, discusses Stellet Licht as a cinema of immanence, whereas Mariano Paz's 2015 article titled Las leyes del deseo, sexualidad, anomia y nación en el cine de Carlos Reygadas promotes a socio-political interpretation of several of the filmmaker's films in relation to the concept of urban localities. Critics' effort usually attempt to resolve a series of polarities. Are his films political or philosophical? Do they comment on Mexico national struggles and virtues, or does the film's narrative grapple with universal human quandaries such as suffering, death, desire, in such a way that unwittingly obfuscates whatever specificity can be regarded as Mexican or Mexicanness? And the dichotomous possibilities continue, suggesting that his films can accomplish only either polarity, that is, be political or philosophical, be national or universal. However, hardly anyone disagrees that his cinema is avant-garde, experimental, anti-commercial or anti-industry, auteur, and conceptual. Consequently, as is generally the case with counter-cinema, and with counter-cinema I'm mobilizing Peter Wallen's definition, the aesthetic language and audio-visual composition of the film do not necessarily work to supplement, clarify, or complete, for that matter, their diegesis. On the contrary, many have remarked on how his films, not unlike those of other auteurs in Spanish language, like Lucrecia Martel, Victor Erice, Lisandro Alonso, to name just the most perhaps well-known, present a filmic aesthetic that disarticulates rather than cohere the film's narrative. Ultimately, Reygadas remains a filmmaker consumed by the question of what film is, or as he expresses it, what real cinema is. Like Godard's films, Reygadas remain in a great part dedicated to the ongoing exercise of thinking cinema with and through films. Analyzing the oral and visual composition in a sequence in Batalla en el Cielo de 2005, I propose that Reygadas' films stress the technical and ontological link between cinema and photography. I read a couple of sequences in these two films in this film to suggest two interrelated theses. The first thesis is that associating a collaborative art to leftist political ideology stems from the indexical operation of letting a particular form signal or signify a befitting content, be it political, social, or cultural. The second thesis speculates on how to interpret film when the indexical operation of interpreting a visual and oral object such as cinema is replaced by what I propose is an analogical operation. So, la propuesta que tengo es de no leerlo en términos así como una operación referencial, ¿no? Lo que llamo indexical, pero quiero proponer en base a un trabajo de una autora que voy a citar luego, de leerlo como una operación analógica. ¿Y qué significa eso? Y lo que propongo es que cuando se lee de esa forma, la conexión entre el cine y la fotografía, ¿no? Salen a la superficie, ¿no? Y nos dan a entender una estructuración ontológica del cine que también en cierta forma nos ayuda a especular sobre ciertas estructuraciones ontológicas del mundo, ¿no? Por ejemplo, o de cómo vemos el mundo. Esa sería más o menos la tesis principal. Regarding the first, take for instance a thesis, ¿no? Esa idea de que un proyecto colaborativo y el cine se piensa siempre como algo colaborativo, como algo mixto, ¿no? Siempre ha sido la definición del cine, algo contaminado, algo sucio, ¿no? Digo que generalmente ha existido una tradición del pensamiento de pensar que un trabajo colaborativo tiene ideologías izquierdistas, ¿no? Entonces, take for instance how leftist artists have tended since the early 20th century to ascribe to the photographic image an evidentiary ability that may expose that which wanted to pass in hiding or ignorance. Think of the works of Benjamin, Barth, Krakauer, for instance. Quiero problematizar esa idea, ¿no? De pensar al cine tanto como partiendo de la fotografía como objetos documentales que nos llevan a una cierta verdad en el pasado, ¿no? Una realidad perdida en el pasado y que tienen este aspecto revelador, ¿no? Y para hacer eso trazo la analogía, por ejemplo, cuando Marx en The German Ideology declares that revolutionary ideas can come only from the revolutionary class, namely the proletariat. There is an analogous operation here that the case of Marx himself in writing this or his other books seems to belie. His statement presupposes a causal connection between a class, in this case the proletariat, and revolutionary ideas, which can be authored only by the likes of the former. How is this causal connection established? While that would entail a much longer discussion, here I'm interested in highlighting that the causal relation between class and idea, or collaborative methodology and leftist ideology, right, is grounded on an indexical operation in which one is established as evidence of the other. Y es precisamente esa operación referencial que quiero desarticular con mi análisis de Reygadas, ¿no? The rest of my discussion examines how Batalla en el Cielo and Reygadas cinema in general destabilize the indexical operation that is often attributed to cinema, an attribution that derives from the historical and aesthetic connection between films and literature, particularly theater. On several occasions, Reygadas himself has expressed unequivocal displeasure with theater, particularly regarding the ilk of acting often associated with theatrical drama, which has influenced Reygadas' ads, the development and makeup of commercial films. For him, actors should not pretend, but rather be given the opportunity to be in cinema. Just like it was the common practice of Italian neorealism and the nuevo cine latinoamericano, celebrated precursors to Reygadas' class of filmmaking, his films employ non-professional actors, most of whom preserve their real names. That is the case, for instance, for Marcos and Ana in Batalla en el Cielo, played by Marcos Hernandez and Ana Paula Muscades, respectively. Reygadas' invocation of theater as a model for cinema to oppose echoes an essay André Bazin wrote in the mid-20th century, in which he examines the connections between cinema and literature, including theater. In defense of mixed cinema, Bazin seems concerned about singling out the traits that are specific to cinema as an art form, while also noting that its debt to literature cannot be disputed. Yet Bazin agrees that there are examples of true cinema, and that's a quote, él dice, cine verdadero, ¿no? That, owing nothing to literature in the theater, has discovered its own themes and language. In other words, true cinema, also referred to as people like Bazin himself and Reygadas as real cinema, does not derive from, let alone imitate or simply visually represent, literature or theater. Instead, true or real cinema uncovers a language that proves particular to the medium, as well as the art form enabled by the medium. To the extent that Reygadas is filmmaker undoes the indexical operation, it does so by promoting an alternative that operates by analogy rather than as the representation of a referent that pre-exists the former. Then, how does the analogical operation manifest itself in Batalla en el Cielo? Y aquí es que hago el análisis de la secuencia. The first sequence appears before the film's title is shown. Reygada has referred to the approximately 3-minute sequence, y esa es la secuencia al comienzo, ¿no? Que ha sido bastante controversial, ¿no? As a prelude rather than necessarily the actual beginning of the film. The screen goes dark, and a fixed camera captures a scene that is predominantly dark at first and gradually becomes lit to show a group of soldiers marching to raise the Mexican flag in the square. Marcos, our protagonist, is shown walking behind him, marching behind the soldiers, from a clear distance but clearly following them. As the soldiers raise the flag with accompanying diegetic drumming, Marcos is shown receiving warring news on the phone. The next sequence begins with him standing next to a woman. The camera shows them standing next to each other, almost paralyzed, with facial expressions that fall somewhere in between deep concern and distracted indifference. Cynthia Tompkins has pointed out that capturing pain, anguished faces has become a distinctive feature of Reygadas' filmmaking. Y este es de un artículo en el que ella hace una lectura de Louisiana, ¿no? Del cine de Reygadas. Their gazes seem lost in the subway crowd that walks past them. Silent, they remain still in what proves a disconcerting sequence. The camera slowly pans from one side of the subway tunnel to the other, making the spectator believe that it has assumed Marcos's point of view. But the panning soon captures and stops right behind his back, thus putting into doubt whose perspective the camera gaze had ever taken. The same visual technique happens repeatedly throughout the rest of the sequence and film. Never once, actually, does the camera actually behold a character's point of view, though the suggestion of that happens on several occasions, only to be confirmed subsequently that the perspective of the camera gaze and the characters may be synchronized but never collapsed. It does not seem to me that such a camera technique attempts to strip the characters of their subjectivity or perspective. In several other moments, after all, the camera does focus on Marcos, his wife, and Ana's eyes, which express a variety of emotions. Take, for instance, the 2 tears that Ana's eyes shed in the beginning sequence, tears that have been artificially imposed through CGI. What do they mean, especially the surreal presence they undertake? Or the close-up of the wife's eyes after discovering her husband's dead body, whose head was covered with a blue hood, that is, with his eyes covered. These close-ups of pregnant eyes symbolize the importance of what they see and the spectator cannot. However, they express emotions, discernible or not, that cannot be fully cohered into the film's diegesis. That is, in the cinematic image of those eyes, spectators must be satisfied with the fact that these eyes express without necessarily communicating. While these shots reflect the multiplication of gazes superimposed, that is, of the camera capturing the character's gaze that is later met by the spectator's gaze, they enable no heightened understanding of their diegetic meaning, and perhaps even their cinematic function. It is precisely the simultaneous affirmation and negation of subjective perspectivism that undercuts the indexical operation in cinema, one that often affixes a particular meaning to a visual, oral, or linguistic referent. The subway sequence continues with Marcos walking in the tunnel toward the track to take the subway. Almost assuming Marcos's point of view, the camera shows us the subway pathway that Marcos walks to reach his train. Moving unsteadily, the camera performs this sense of anxious disorientation, if not outright fear, that has besieged Marcos because of the child's accidental demise. Esta es la muerte del niño secuestrado, ¿no? Que más o menos lanza la narrativa de la película, por lo menos, ¿no? Me quedan 5 minutos, así que voy a resumir en español y termino. Entonces, precisamente mi lectura habla, como hice el análisis de este momento en el que se multiplican las perspectivas y a partir de ello, ¿no? En cierta forma, tanto afirmar como negar, ¿no? La subjetividad de los personajes, y que es a partir de ahí que esta operación referencial del cine se va deconstruyendo o se va deshaciendo, ¿no? En cierta forma. Ese es el nivel visual, pero después también hago un análisis al nivel de lo auditivo, ¿no? Y ahí es cuando hablo del sonido acusmático, ¿no? Esto es en base al trabajo de Michel Chion, en el que él analiza el sonido que tiene presencia como oral, como sonido, pero no tiene presencia física, es decir, que no sabemos de dónde surge, cómo es que surge, cuáles son sus causas. Entonces yo hago un análisis que el sonido queda fracturado dentro de la imagen, ¿no? O sea, es decir, que el framing, ¿no? de la cámara fractura el sonido, dejando su causa, su origen afuera de la imagen, ¿no? Y que en ese trabajo de fracturar el sonido que tradicionalmente en el cine se ha pensado como algo bastante homogéneo, ¿no? Como un bloque operacional, ¿no? Por eso la idea del soundtrack, por ejemplo, ¿no? Que se habla como algo singular, ¿no? Entonces digo que en ese fracturamiento también se produce un cierto tipo de multiplicidad, ¿no? Que apunta nuevamente esta multiplicidad de perspectivas que nos invita a pensar el cine de forma analógica, ¿no? Entonces, por ahora termino diciendo, y voy a citar Kaya Silverman, que es una teorista psicoanalista, ¿no? Que habla de la operación analógica de la fotografía. Entonces, después de esos dos análisis, lo que yo hago es conectarlo, ¿no? Como el cine de Reygadas, en este caso, insistentemente nos lleva a pensar la conexión todavía bastante rica, potencial, entre la fotografía y el cine, a pesar de que el cine en muchos sentidos es otro tipo de medio, ¿no? Debido a poder representar movimiento y el tiempo mediante el movimiento, ¿no? Y el sonido, que son atributos que la fotografía obviamente no tiene, ¿no? Entonces lo que digo que hay un cierto tipo de conocimiento sobre el cine, ¿no? Pero también sobre la realidad con el cual el cine está dialogando, que es la fotografía nuevamente. Photography is the vehicle through which these profoundly enabling but unwelcome relationships are revealed to us, and through which we learn to think analogically. Silverman adds that photography is able to disclose the world, show us what it is, that it is structured by analogy, and help us assume our place within it, because it too, the world too, is analogical. When Silverman says that the world is analogically constituted, she means that the world bears both similarity and difference, just as analogy itself does. One of the most miraculous features of an analogy, she says, and this is a quote, is its ability to operate in the face of these imbalances of difference and similarity, to maintain the two-in-one principle, even when there is only a narrow margin of difference or a sliver of similarity. Y ahí lo cierro. Bueno.